Your mind is either your greatest ally or your most dangerous enemy, and you choose which one it becomes every single moment you draw breath. Right now, as you sit here, your mind is processing thousands of thoughts, making countless decisions, shaping your reality with invisible forces more powerful than any technology humanity has ever created. The question isn't whether your mind has power, the question is whether you're the master or the slave. How many of you can honestly say you control your thoughts rather than your thoughts controlling you? Show of hands. How many of you have ever laid awake at night, mind racing with worries about tomorrow, replaying conversations from yesterday, spinning scenarios that may never happen? Keep those hands up. Now, how many of you have tried to stop those racing thoughts and found that the harder you try, the faster they spin? That's the paradox of the untrained mind. It's like trying to calm turbulent water by hitting it with your hands. The more force you apply, the more chaotic it becomes. There was a soul I knew who lived in constant turmoil, rushing from crisis to crisis, always reactive, never proactive. Each day felt like swimming upstream against an invisible current. Every morning brought the same overwhelming flood of responsibilities, deadlines, and demands. The alarm clock wasn't just a wake-up call, it was a starting gun for another day of mental chaos. This person would wake up and immediately reach for their phone, filling their mind with news, messages, and other people's opinions before their own thoughts had a chance to form. They'd rush through breakfast while mentally rehearsing the day's problems, shower while worrying about meetings, and drive to work while their mind jumped from one anxiety to another like a monkey swinging from branch to branch. By noon they felt drained. By evening they were exhausted, not from physical work but from the constant mental chatter that never ceased. Sleep brought little relief because even their dreams were filled with stress and unresolved tensions. They were living their life on autopilot, driven by reactions rather than responses, governed by circumstances rather than consciousness. But one morning something shifted. Instead of immediately reaching for the phone or rushing into the day's demands, they sat quietly for just 5 minutes, not thinking, not planning, not worrying, simply observing the mind itself. In that brief space of silence, they made a profound discovery. The mind, when properly directed, becomes a generator of infinite possibility rather than a creator of endless problems. In those 5 minutes, they noticed something remarkable. The urgent thoughts that seemed so important moments before began to lose their grip. The worries that felt overwhelming started to appear as what they truly were, mental constructions that existed only in imagination, not in reality. The mind, which had been like a wild horse running in all directions, began to settle into natural rhythm and order. This wasn't meditation in the traditional sense. This wasn't about chanting or special postures or mystical experiences. This was simply conscious awareness, the revolutionary act of watching the mind work instead of being dragged along by its movements. And in that watching, they found something that had been missing their entire life: choice. For the first time, they realized they didn't have to believe every thought that arose. They didn't have to follow every worry down its rabbit hole of anxiety. They didn't have to react to every mental impulse or emotional surge. They could observe, evaluate, and then consciously choose their response. Those 5 minutes became the foundation for rebuilding an entire life from the inside out, not through force or willpower, but through understanding a simple truth: you are not your thoughts, you are the awareness that observes your thoughts. And that awareness has the power to choose which thoughts deserve attention, and which ones can be allowed to pass like clouds across an empty sky. Every moment presents you with a choice that will echo through eternity. Not the choice between good and bad. That's obvious to anyone with basic moral sense. The choice between consciousness and unconsciousness, between deliberate creation and random reaction, between being the author of your life story or being a character in someone else's drama. Most people live their entire lives unconsciously, allowing their minds to run wild like untrained animals. Your mind is like a plot of fertile ground. Every thought you allow to take root grows into your reality. Most people plant weeds unconsciously, and then wonder why their lives are overrun with problems they never intended to create. Think about it. You wouldn't let strangers walk into your home and rearrange your furniture, yet you allow random thoughts to enter your mind and rearrange your emotional state. You wouldn't eat food without knowing what's in it, yet you consume mental content all day long without questioning its nutritional value for your consciousness. The mind operates on autopilot 95% of the time, recycling old thoughts, old patterns, old limitations. It's like a computer running the same programs over and over again, producing the same results year after year. But consciousness, our consciousness is the game changer. When you become conscious of your mind's activity, you gain the power to redirect it. And when you redirect your mind consistently for just 5 minutes each day, you begin to reprogram the remaining 23 hours and 55 minutes. This isn't about positive thinking or denying problems exist. This is about developing the mental strength to respond from wisdom rather than react from conditioning. It's about choosing your thoughts the way you choose your clothes, deliberately, purposefully, with awareness of the impression you want to make on the world. Your 5-minute practice becomes like the rudder of a great ship. A small adjustment to the rudder changes the direction of the entire vessel. A small daily practice of conscious awareness changes the direction of your entire life. Not through massive effort or dramatic transformation, but through the compound effect of small, consistent choices made from awakened consciousness. When was the last time you sat with your mind for 5 minutes without distraction? When did you last observe your thoughts without judgment, without trying to fix or change anything, simply witnessing the incredible machinery of consciousness at work? If you're like most people, the answer is never, and that's exactly why most people live lives of quiet desperation, driven by forces they don't understand and controlled by patterns they never chose. You'll spend 5 minutes reading strangers' opinions, but you won't spend 5 minutes getting acquainted with the most important person in your life, yourself. You'll invest hours researching the best products to buy, but you won't invest 5 minutes daily in upgrading the operating system of your mind. You'll study the weather forecast to plan your day, but you won't study your mental forecast to understand what's creating the weather patterns in your inner world. Your mind is creating your reality every second, and you're operating it blindly. That's like trying to perform surgery while wearing a blindfold, or driving a car with your eyes closed, or cooking a meal in complete darkness. The results might not always be catastrophic, but they're certainly not optimal. Most people are more familiar with their favorite television characters than they are with their own mental patterns. They know the storylines of fictional people better than they understand their own life story. They can predict what their favorite characters will do in any situation, but they have no idea how their own mind will react to stress, opportunity, or challenge. This isn't criticism, it's observation. And observation without judgment is the beginning of transformation. The moment you begin to watch your mind with curious awareness rather than frustrated resistance, you've taken the first step toward mastery. But here's what most people don't understand. External success without internal mastery is hollow and temporary. You can accumulate all the wealth, achievements, and recognition in the world, but if your mind remains undisciplined, you'll still feel empty, anxious, and unfulfilled. True power comes from within, and it expresses itself through clarity of thought, steadiness of emotion, and wisdom in action. A tree with shallow roots might look impressive for a season, but when storms come, it falls. A tree with deep roots weathers every storm and continues growing for decades, becoming stronger and more beautiful with each passing year. Your 5 minutes of daily mental discipline is like sending roots deep into the soil of consciousness, creating an unshakable foundation for everything you want to build in your life. This practice isn't about forcing positive thoughts or denying problems exist. It's about developing the mental strength to respond rather than react, to choose rather than be chosen for, to create rather than be created by circumstances. It's about becoming the gardener of your own consciousness instead of letting weeds grow wild in the fertile soil of your mind. Think of the difference between a master musician and someone who's never touched an instrument. Both have the same potential for creating beautiful music, but only one has developed the skill through daily practice. Your mind has the same potential for creating a beautiful life, but that potential remains dormant until you develop it through conscious practice. The same intelligence that coordinates billions of cells in your body, that orchestrates the seasons, that maintains the precise dance of planets and stars, minutes and stars. This same intelligence is available to organize and direct your daily life, but first you must create the conditions for it to flow through you. When you master your mind through daily practice, you're not just improving your personal life, you're aligning with the fundamental laws that govern all growth, all progress, all achievement. You're tapping into patterns that have been operating since the beginning of time, principles that work the same way whether you're growing a garden, building a business, or developing your character. Your 5 minutes of mental discipline each morning isn't just personal development, it's cosmic alignment. It's stepping into harmony with the very forces that created galaxies and grow flowers from tiny seeds. It's recognizing that the same power that moves mountains and changes seasons lives within your consciousness, waiting to be awakened through the simple act of daily attention. Nature operates on principles, not preferences. A farmer doesn't beg seeds to grow, he creates the right conditions and trusts the natural process. Your mind works exactly the same way. How many of you have ever planted a garden? Raise your hands. Now, for those of you who raised your hands, did you ever try to argue with a tomato seed about when it should sprout? Did you ever attempt to negotiate with soil about whether it should be fertile? Of course not. You understand that growth follows laws, not wishes. Yet when it comes to your own development, you try to bend universal principles to your convenience rather than aligning yourself with their power. You want the harvest without the planting, the strength without the training, the wisdom without the learning. But consciousness, like agriculture, operates according to immutable laws that respond to preparation, not desperation. Just as a farmer prepares soil before planting, you must prepare your mind before expecting extraordinary results. Your 5 minutes each morning is like tilling the soil of consciousness, removing weeds of negative thought, and creating fertile ground for success to take root. This isn't mystical thinking, it's practical application of natural law to mental development. The farmer understands timing. He doesn't plant corn in winter or try to harvest wheat the day after sowing. He works with seasonal rhythms, not against them. Your personal growth follows the same seasonal patterns. There's a time for planting new ideas, a time for nurturing them with consistent action, a time for harvesting results, and a time for rest and reflection. Most people try to harvest before they've planted, or they plant but never water their seeds with daily attention. They attend one seminar and expect permanent transformation. They read one book and think they've mastered the principles. They practice meditation for a week and wonder why their lives haven't completely changed. This is like planting a seed on Monday and digging it up on Tuesday to see why it hasn't become a tree. Success is grown, not grabbed. It emerges from consistent daily habits the way flowers emerge from properly tended soil. Your 5-minute practice is like planting seeds of clarity, focus, and inner strength every single day. After a week, you have 7 seeds beginning to sprout. After a month, you have 30 seeds growing roots beneath the surface. After a year, you have 365 seeds that have matured into a forest of capability. The farmer doesn't plant one seed and expect a forest. He plants many seeds, tends them daily, waters them consistently, protects them from weeds, and trusts the process. Some seeds grow faster than others. Some face challenges that make them stronger. Some produce fruit earlier, others later. But all of them follow the same fundamental principles of growth. Your mental development follows identical patterns. The thoughts you plant with conscious intention grow into beliefs. The beliefs you nurture with consistent action grow into habits. The habits you maintain with daily discipline grow into character. And character cultivated over time grows into destiny. Can you see the difference between this approach and how most people try to change their lives? They want instant results from sporadic effort. They expect extraordinary outcomes from ordinary commitment. They hope for transformation without preparation. But nature doesn't work that way, and neither does human consciousness. It begins as a tiny acorn, vulnerable to every wind and storm. For years it grows slowly, building strength in its trunk, extending its roots, developing resilience. Then when it reaches maturity, it becomes nearly indestructible. Storms that topple other trees only make the oak stronger. Why? Because it spent years building the foundation that makes surface stability possible. Your 5-minute daily practice is like that patient, persistent growth of the oak tree. Each session strengthens your mental roots, builds your emotional trunk, and extends your spiritual branches. You might not see dramatic changes in the first week or even the first month, but foundations are being laid that will support you for the rest of your life. This is where most people make their fatal mistake. They judge the effectiveness of their practice by immediate visible results. But the most important growth happens underground, in the realm of consciousness where roots develop and strength accumulates. Just as you can't see a tree's root system, you can't always see the foundational changes happening in your awareness. Life operates in predictable cycles just like the seasons. Night follows day, winter follows summer. Difficulties and breakthroughs alternate in natural rhythm. The wise person doesn't resist these cycles, minus prepare for them. They understand that challenging periods aren't punishment for past mistakes but preparation for future opportunities. When winter comes, the farmer doesn't rage against the cold or wish it were summer. He uses winter for planning, repairing tools, and preparing for spring planting. Similarly, when difficulties arise in your life, and they will, your 5-minute practice gives you the stability to use these challenging periods constructively rather than destructively. Show me someone who has never faced significant challenges and I'll show you someone who has never grown significantly. Difficulties aren't obstacles to success, they're the raw material from which success is forged. But only if you have the mental strength to extract the lessons and apply the wisdom. Your daily practice becomes an anchor for your consciousness. When storms of circumstance arise, and they will, you remain stable while others are tossed about by external events. This isn't because you're avoiding difficulties but because you've built the inner foundation that allows you to respond wisely rather than react desperately. Think of a ship's anchor. It doesn't prevent storms from coming, but it keeps the ship from being swept away by winds and currents. Your 5 minutes of mental discipline each morning serves the same function for your consciousness. It anchors you to something deeper and more stable than temporary circumstances. During challenging periods, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you learn to ask, "What is this teaching me?" Every difficulty contains a lesson that once learned prevents the same problem from recurring. Your 5 minutes of mental clarity each morning helps you extract these lessons quickly instead of repeating painful patterns for years. Most people learn lessons the hard way through repetition of pain until they finally change their approach. But conscious awareness accelerates learning. When your mind is clear and focused, you can see patterns emerging before they become problems. You can make course corrections before you crash into the same obstacles repeatedly. During opportunity periods when things are going well, most people become careless and lose the very disciplines that created their success. This is why lottery winners often end up worse off than before. External fortune without internal discipline is temporary at best, destructive at worst. Your daily practice keeps you grounded and growing regardless of circumstances. Success can be more dangerous than failure if you're not prepared for it. Failure keeps you humble and motivated. Success can make you careless and complacent. The person with a strong daily practice remains steady whether circumstances are favorable or challenging. They don't get too high during good times or too low during difficult times. The most dangerous time in any growth cycle is right after a major breakthrough. That's when the ego whispers, "You've made it. You can relax now. You don't need to maintain those boring daily disciplines anymore." This is where countless people have thrown away years of progress for momentary relaxation. Your 5-minute practice protects you from this trap. It keeps you connected to the source of your strength rather than being seduced by its effects. It reminds you daily that your success flows from inner discipline, not external circumstances. During transition periods, the space between ending one phase and beginning another, most people feel lost and anxious. They want to rush into the next phase without allowing the natural pause that prepares them for what's coming. But these transitional moments are sacred. They're like the pause between breaths, essential for the next breath to be nourishing and complete. Use these transitional periods to strengthen your practice and clarify your direction. Instead of rushing toward the next goal, allow yourself to integrate the lessons from the previous phase. This integration makes you stronger and wiser for whatever comes next. When you change your inner landscape through consistent practice, your outer world reorganizes itself to match. This isn't wishful thinking. It's observable law. As you become more centered, you make better decisions. As you make better decisions, you create better results. As you create better results, you build confidence and momentum. Think about it this way. Every decision you make flows from your state of consciousness at the moment of decision. When your consciousness is scattered and reactive, your decisions are scattered and reactive. When your consciousness is clear and purposeful, your decisions are clear and purposeful. Your 5-minute practice ensures that you begin each day from clarity rather than confusion. The compound effect works in consciousness just as it works in finance. Small, consistent investments in your mental development create enormous returns over time. A person who invests 5 minutes daily in mental clarity will, after 1 year, have invested over 30 hours in their consciousness. After 5 years, that's over 150 hours of focused mental development. After 10 years, it's over 300 hours of deliberate consciousness training. Compare that to someone who spends the same amount of time consumed by mental chatter, worry, and unconscious thinking. After 10 years, which person do you think will have greater clarity, better judgment, and more inner strength? The difference isn't subtle, it's dramatic. Your transformation affects everyone around you, creating ripples that extend far beyond your personal life. A person who has mastered their mind becomes a source of calm strength for others. They solve problems others find overwhelming. They see opportunities others miss. They create value others appreciate. They become a stabilizing force in an unstable world. People will notice the change before you do. They'll comment that you seem calmer, more focused, more present. They'll seek your advice because your perspective comes from wisdom rather than worry. They'll trust your judgment because your decisions flow from clarity rather than confusion. But here's the challenge that awaits every person who begins this practice. Your mind will present you with every excuse imaginable to skip your 5 minutes of daily discipline. It will tell you you're too busy, too tired, that it's not working, that you can start tomorrow. These aren't random thoughts. They're predictable patterns of resistance that every successful person has learned to overcome. These resistance patterns are not your enemies. They're predictable forces that can be understood and overcome. Every successful person has faced the same internal voices, the same excuses, the same temptations to abandon their practice. The difference between those who succeed and those who fail isn't the absence of resistance, it's the response to resistance. Who here has ever started an exercise program with great enthusiasm, only to find excuses creeping in after a few days? Raise your hands, keep them up. Now, who has started a diet, a new habit, or a personal improvement plan with sincere intentions, only to watch it fade away within a week or two? That's the power of the comfort zone guardian, the part of your mind that wants to keep everything exactly as it is, even if as it is makes you miserable. Change requires energy, and this mental guardian wants to conserve energy at all costs. It will whisper seductive lies. Why rock the boat? Things aren't that bad. You can start tomorrow when you feel more motivated. But motivation is not what creates lasting change. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. Successful people don't wait for the feeling of motivation to strike like lightning. They create motivation through consistent action, regardless of how they feel in the moment. Your mind will become incredibly creative at generating reasons why you can't find 5 minutes. I'm too busy, yet you found time to check your phone 17 times yesterday. It's not working. After practicing for 3 days, I'll start Monday, the favorite refrain of the perpetually stuck. I need the perfect environment, while the person who starts imperfectly today surpasses the person who waits for perfection tomorrow. The excuse generator in your head has an unlimited supply of seemingly reasonable explanations for why today isn't the right day to begin or continue your practice. It sounds logical, even caring. You're under too much stress right now. Wait until things calm down. But here's the truth that will set you free. Things never calm down on their own. Calm is something you create through practice, not something you wait to receive from circumstances. The perfectionist saboteur is perhaps the most sophisticated of these internal voices. It convinces you that you need the perfect time, perfect place, perfect mood, perfect circumstances to begin your practice. It sets impossibly high standards that guarantee failure, then uses that failure as evidence that you should give up entirely. This voice says you need a special cushion. A quiet room, 30 minutes instead of 5, complete silence, the ideal mental state before you can begin. Meanwhile, the person who sits on a kitchen chair for 5 minutes each morning, with traffic noise in the background and thoughts swirling through their head, develops more inner strength in a month than the perfectionist develops in a year of waiting for ideal conditions. Here's the framework that dissolves these patterns of resistance: recognition, redirection, and reinforcement. When you notice an excuse arising, and you will notice because awareness is the first step to freedom, simply acknowledge it without fighting it. Ah, there's the busy excuse, or hello, perfectionist saboteur. Fighting these thoughts gives them power. When you resist resistance, you create more resistance. But when you acknowledge these patterns with the same detached awareness you'd use to notice clouds in the sky, they lose their grip on your behavior. The moment after recognition comes redirection. Don't debate with the excuse or try to convince yourself with logical arguments. Excuses aren't logical. They're emotional patterns dressed up in reasonable clothing. Instead of arguing, immediately redirect your attention to action. Stand up, find your spot, sit down, close your eyes, begin. Action dissolves resistance faster than any argument ever could. The excuse that seemed so compelling 30 seconds ago evaporates the moment you take the first step. It's like turning on a light to make shadows disappear. The shadows weren't real obstacles, just the absence of illumination. After completing your practice, take a moment to acknowledge that you chose growth over comfort, discipline over convenience, your future self over your present comfort. This positive reinforcement strengthens the neural pathways of success and makes tomorrow's choice easier than today's. Think of it like training a muscle. Just as physical muscles grow stronger through resistance, your discipline muscle grows stronger each time you choose your practice over your excuses. Every small victory builds momentum for the next one. Every time you honor your commitment to yourself, you become more trustworthy in your own eyes. But what exactly should you do during these 5 transformative minutes? The practice is simple, but don't mistake simplicity for ineffectiveness. The most powerful forces in nature operate through simple principles consistently applied. For the first 2 minutes, sit comfortably with your spine straight and close your eyes. Begin breathing naturally, not forcing or controlling your breath, simply observing it. Notice the cool air entering your nostrils, the gentle pause between inhale and exhale, the warm air leaving your body. This isn't meditation in the mystical sense, it's awareness training. You're learning to direct your attention consciously, rather than letting it drift randomly like a leaf in the wind. Your mind will try to pull you into planning mode, worry mode, or memory mode. That's completely normal and expected. Don't fight these thoughts or judge yourself for having them. Simply notice when your attention has wandered, and gently bring it back to your breath. Each time you notice and return, you're strengthening your mental muscles. This isn't about achieving a blank mind or reaching some special state of consciousness. It's about developing the ability to choose where you place your attention. This skill will serve you throughout the day, when you need to focus on important tasks, listen carefully to others, or remain calm under pressure. For minutes 3 and 4, observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them. Think of yourself as sitting by a river, watching thoughts float by like leaves on the water. Some thoughts will try to pull you in. Plans for the day, worries about problems, memories from yesterday. Don't resist them, but don't follow them either. Simply notice the different types of thoughts. There's a planning thought, there's a worry thought, there's a memory thought, there's a judgment thought. You're developing what the ancient wisdom traditions call the witness consciousness, the part of you that can watch your mind work without being swept away by its contents. This observation skill transforms your entire relationship with your mental activity. Instead of being a victim of random thoughts and emotions, you become the conscious observer of your own psychological processes. This shift in perspective is worth more than years of therapy because it gives you direct access to the source of all mental suffering, unconscious identification with temporary mental states. In the final minute, plant seeds for your day ahead, not by forcing positive thoughts or repeating empty affirmations, but by setting clear intentions that align with your highest values. Today I respond rather than react. Today I look for opportunities rather than problems. Today I act from strength rather than fear. Today I create value for others while honoring my own needs. These aren't wishful thinking statements, they're programming instructions for your subconscious mind. Just as a computer follows the instructions in its programming, your subconscious mind will work throughout the day to align your actions with the intentions you set during this focused time. Why does this specific structure work so powerfully? The breathing calms your nervous system and brings you fully into the present moment, which is where all power exists. The mental observation develops your awareness and breaks unconscious thought patterns that create stress and confusion. The intentional programming gives your mind clear direction for the day ahead, instead of leaving it to operate on random autopilot. This isn't wishful thinking or positive psychology, it's practical neuroscience applied to daily life. When you consistently practice conscious awareness, you literally rewire your brain for greater clarity, emotional stability, and wise decision-making.
Now, how do you establish this practice so it becomes as automatic as brushing your teeth? First, anchor it to an existing routine. Don't try to find extra time in your already busy schedule. Attach your 5-minute practice to something you already do consistently, right after you wake up, before your morning coffee, after you use the bathroom. The key is consistency of timing, not perfection of conditions. If 5 minutes feels overwhelming when you first begin, start with 2 minutes. If 2 minutes feels like too much, start with 30 seconds of conscious breathing. The goal isn't duration, it's consistency. 30 seconds daily for 30 days creates more lasting change than 30 minutes once a week. Your ego will resist this advice because it wants dramatic gestures and impressive commitments. But sustainable change comes through small, consistent actions that compound over time. It's better to practice for 1 minute daily for a year than to practice for an hour once and then give up. Keep a simple record of your practice, a check mark on a calendar, a note in your phone, a mark on a piece of paper. Seeing your streak of consistent days creates momentum and accountability. You'll be surprised how motivating it becomes to keep your streak alive and how reluctant you become to break a chain of successful days. Prepare for the predictable resistance that will test your commitment around days 7, 14, and 21. These are the points where most people abandon their practice, not because it's not working, but because the old patterns are fighting to reassert themselves. Expect this resistance and have your response planned in advance. Having a plan defeats the plan to quit. The transformation you'll experience goes far beyond the 5 minutes themselves. Your daily practice creates a foundation of inner strength that supports everything else you do. You'll find yourself making better decisions because you're operating from clarity rather than reactivity. You'll handle stress more effectively because you've built mental resilience through daily training. You'll communicate more skillfully because you're responding from awareness rather than emotional impulse. Problems that once overwhelmed you will become manageable challenges that strengthen rather than defeat you. Opportunities that you previously missed will become obvious because your mind is clear enough to recognize them. People will notice the change in you before you notice it yourself. They'll comment that you seem calmer, more focused, more present. They'll seek your advice because your perspective comes from wisdom rather than worry. They'll trust your judgment because your decisions flow from clarity rather than confusion. Your extraordinary life is waiting for you on the other side of 5 minutes of daily discipline. Not 5 hours, not 5 complex techniques, not 5 expensive courses. Just 5 minutes of conscious connection with the most powerful force in your universe, your own awakened mind. Every day you postpone this practice is another day of living below your potential. Every morning you choose unconsciousness over awareness is another morning of external programming over internal mastery. But this moment right now you can choose differently. You have the knowledge, you have the tools, you have the understanding. The only question remaining is whether you'll use them. Will you be someone who knows what to do, or someone who does what they know? Will you join the masses who live in quiet desperation, or will you become one of the few who take responsibility for their own consciousness? Your mind has been running your life unconsciously for decades. It's time to take back control. Your 5 minutes start tomorrow morning, and they will change everything if you let them. The timer begins now.